Alhamdulillah. Let us start off with our intentions. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Intentions for seeking knowledge and teaching. I intend to seek knowledge and to teach, to benefit myself and to benefit others, to remind myself and to remind others, to profit myself and to profit others, to urge adherence to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to invite to guidance and to guide to that which is good, seeking the face of Allah, His pleasure, His closeness, and His reward, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's continue on with the Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ارزقنا يا ربي فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين وفقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل واهدنا إلى سواء السبيل. اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا وعرفنا بالعلم النافع وانفعنا به أنفسنا وأهلنا وأوطاننا وديارنا وجميع المسلمين يا إله العالمين. الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Continue with our legacy. We are still with the book Saviors of the Islamic Spirit, and we are with Ibn Taymiyyah. Right, we have his name Hafiz Ibn Taymiyyah in 661 after Hijrah to 728 after Hijrah. All right, we saw him being jailed. We saw that Jahangir became king, and Jahangir wasn't happy with his ideas of the dialectics ideas, and so he was jailed. And then we saw Jahangir also losing his power because of his inability to hold on to the institution. So now we continue with the release of Ibn Taymiyyah. Sheikh Alamuddin al-Barza'il, a contemporary of Ibn Taymiyyah, says that when Sultan Qalawun entered Egypt on the day of Eid, the anxiety uppermost in his mind was to bring back Ibn Taymiyyah. Accordingly, the royal summons to bring him back reached Iskandaria the next day, and he departed from the city on the 8th of Shawwal. So we saw here the Sultan Qalawun was able to conquer or take over the rule of Egypt and the Muslim land at that time. And Iskandaria is Alexandria, and we know that Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah was jailed in Alexandria. A large crowd in Iskandaria had gathered to bid farewell to him. Wrong spelling. The king and his courtiers came out of the hot royal chamber to receive Ibn Taymiyyah. So he came back to Cairo, the capital of Egypt. After warm greetings extended to Ibn Taymiyyah by all, the king took him to the inner chamber, where the two remained alone for some time. Ibn Taymiyyah later told Qazi Jamaluddin ibn al-Qalanisi that when he was alone with the Sultan, the latter solicited his consent for the execution of all those juries who had sided with Al-Jahangir. So basically, a group of them who were against Ibn Taymiyyah and has worked with Jahangir to find a reason to jail Ibn Taymiyyah. And he felt that just fair that these people should be punished for their wrongdoings. Sultan showed him the legal verdicts given by these persons in favor of Jahangir and said that these very persons are responsible for his own sufferings. All right, so he even showed the messages given, right, the legal rulings that this jurist has made, so that Ibn Taymiyyah is sent to jail, and it's a rule that he's sent to jail. So the Sultan showed him that. And also this has also caused the sufferings of the Sultan. It's his own sufferings. It's Sultan. Ibn Taymiyyah adds that as soon as he came to know of the Sultan's intention, he began praising those jurists and told the Sultan that if these jurists had put to sword, there would be nobody to replace them. So he did see good in the jurists. They are scholars in their own rights. It's just that they have differences of opinion with Ibn Taymiyyah, and they have sort of used their influence on the king to persecute Ibn Taymiyyah for his differences of opinion, because they felt that his opinions are threatening their position. I mean, their opinions, and would create, they felt that it might create some problem there. So they had him jailed. But Ibn Taymiyyah, as we know from the previous lessons that we had, that he is not one who take revenge. And he would find good in people and find reasons to forgive them. That's the style. That's the way of Ibn Taymiyyah. That's the kind of principle he has. The Sultan, however, again said that these persons had left no stone unturned to put Ibn Taymiyyah to the most grievous harm. So the Sultan is trying to convince Ibn Taymiyyah, they are just so bad. You have to punish them. They did every single thing to ensure that you are jailed and you are harmed. To this, Ibn Taymiyyah replied that he had already forgiven them. So Ibn Taymiyyah has just closed the conversation, saying that I've forgiven them, so that I cannot punish them after I have forgiven them. All right. He had therefore no claim upon them. Ibn Taymiyyah kept on urging the Sultan until he promised not to pardon the offending jurist. So not only that, he has forgiven the jurist, but he wants the Sultan to also forgive, so the Sultan will not be able to punish them. The Kathir relates in the authority of Qazi ibn Makhluf, one of the bitterest enemies of Ibn Taymiyyah, that he had not met a man more large-hearted than him. So all these characteristics of Ibn Taymiyyah has gained a lot of respect. Even his enemies respected him and honored him. Ibn Makhluf confessed to Ibn Kathir that he had always tried to instigate and provoke the administration to take actions against Ibn Taymiyyah. But the latter, when his turn came, not only forgave his mistakes, but also pleaded his defense. So this is the greatness of true Muslim scholars, who has got no, he does find faults with certain opinions, but it is a matter of opinion, and he doesn't take revenge on those who did harm to him. Ibn Taymiyyah again turned to the pursuits of teaching and reformative endeavor. So his aim is always to teach and to improve things, or to change things which might have gone wrong. We have seen that during these times in the Islamic Empire, there are a lot of actions, a lot of rituals that were introduced into Islam, because the Muslim has conquered many lands with very different religious practices, and so these people have introduced their practices into Islam, and or these people who converted were not able to let go of some of their practices which were against Islam, and it can amount to a shirk also, but somehow they are still holding on to those beliefs and ideas. For example, we have that even in our Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Singapore, maybe not that much. Maybe there are some of them who keep on to this tradition, which stems from Hinduism, and it has some kind of meaning behind that. For example, the people in Kelantan, when they go to sea, they would actually seek the help of seek the protection of the they call it the jinns of the sea. So of course, as Muslims, are not supposed to do that, but somehow they are not able to get rid of that beliefs. Like in Indonesia, there is a man who used to like go around Mount Merapi to appeal to the jinn of the Mount Merapi, not to be furious and cause Mount Merapi to explode. So all these things are not in Islam. So a number of his adversaries expressed regret for their past behavior, who were all promptly acquitted of their previous enmity by Ibn Taymiyyah, but a few still continued to harbor a grudge against him. So despite the fact that he was very forgiving, there are still those who cannot let go of that anger or hatred towards him. And most of these are scholars, and so they have knowledge, but somehow they are so caught up with their differences, and they are not willing to let go of the differences, and they are very angry with Ibn Taymiyyah for his different opinion. So that's the reality of quarrels and fights, differences of opinion. However, as they found it difficult to say anything openly against Ibn Taymiyyah, they started to malign him along the ignorant masses and instigated them to raise a tumult against him. So that they do other things. Yes, people always do that. They can't do this way to destroy that person. They find other ways to destroy that person. But somehow they do justify their actions because they believe that Ibn Taymiyyah's beliefs are wrong and their beliefs are correct. So then again, what is important in our community also, we have such opinions, and people are always finding faults with those who maybe do the maulud, do the tahlil, do the khatam Quran for those who have passed on, and saying that these are not practices of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and these are all bid'ah. Then but what is important that people should understand is that unity of the ummah is more important than the differences of opinion. Let the differences of opinion be decided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran how many times, right? There are differences of opinion arise, and so leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The efforts bore fruit, and on 4th Rajab 711 after Hijrah, a few persons, evil-minded and wicked in spirit, manhandled and caused body injuries to him. So they attacked him and he was injured. He was quite old at that time, right? 711 already. So the large crowd gathered to take revenge on his behalf, but Ibn Taymiyyah firmly forbade them to take any action. So that is the way it is. Two groups, two leaders, and one leader is able to instigate his people to attack, but because of the other leader, because Ibn Taymiyyah being very noble a person, right? He does not. He sees that, of course, that it is tumult and no use. It's going to create more problem by fighting against the other. There are only 3 alternatives, said he, and the first is that I have a claim upon them. So when they did something wrong, yes, I have a claim on them. This I forego and declare that they are released from every claim that I may have upon them. If you have a claim against them, and you do not also want to listen to me and do whatever you please. So that is his position. Yes, I have a claim on them. They have done wrong against me, but I decide to forego that claim on them. And my advice to you all is that don't exercise this claim on them. But if you have a claim against them and you don't want to listen to me, and do whatever you want to, I won't force you. And if Allah has that claim, he shall have his due whenever he likes. So Allah will decide. Leave it to Allah. On another occasion, a theologian fulminated against him. That means got so angry and mad at him in a gathering, but on having second thoughts, later on apologized to him. So they do get he worked out by what he has said, which to them is like very much against what their beliefs are. They're not able to just live and let live, right? And Taymiyyah immediately forgave him, saying, I never take revenge. So that's the characteristics of Ibn Taymiyyah. Very noble man, and not easy. Not many people are able to be in that kind of calm, tranquil states. Ibn Taymiyyah did not confine his activities only to the instruction of his disciples or propagation of teachings of the Quran and Hadith. He also tendered advice to the Sultan and got some important reforms introduced in Egypt and Syria. So we saw that also, that he not only was a teacher, right, teaching students and guiding them, and also looking into various rulings, but he also was involved with the king. He didn't take a position to overthrow the king, but he gave quite a lot of advice to the Sultan at that time. A royal edict sent to Damascus in 712 after Hijrah prohibited appointments to public officers being made on monetary considerations, but the practice encouraged dishonest persons to hold these posts for minting money out of them. So in many governments, right, appointments in the office of governments would carry quite a big salary. And so Imam Ibn Taymiyyah is not very, he felt that the lure of the money of being in the government is dangerous, because those who are dishonest would actually join the government, not because of their keen interest to serve the community or the country, but more to gain money. So it's best not to entice them with money, but they go in because of their sense of responsibility and desire to take up the position of helping to improve the state of the country. Another order issued by the Sultan forbid unauthorized retaliatory action against a person charged with manslaughter. So that, again, murder, it has to be authorized. And we have learned that in our last lesson on hadith on the honoring the blood of a Muslim, that a man who kills another man, his family can take revenge on the man and have him killed, but it has to be by the order of the country. And the country, if it's not a Muslim country, then we must follow the whatever rulings they have on manslaughter. So it is not that you just can yourself kill the man. There is no such ruling in Islam, right? It has to be by the order of the country. The culprits were ordered to be arrested and impeached in accordance with the law. If everybody is to take the law in their hands, then it will create disorder and anarchy in the country. So that is why this ruling is important, that nobody is allowed to take their laws in their hands, right? If there is a case of murder, manslaughter, whatever, then it has to go to court. The court will decide on the punishment that's going to be meted out on the man, right? And then so that it will protect the community from unauthorized killing, just vengeance killing. Ibn Kathir says that both these orders were issued by the Sultan on the advice of Ibn Taymiyyah. So Ibn Taymiyyah returns to Damascus. Reports of renewed Tatar efforts to invade Syria reached Egypt in Shawwal 7 and 12 after Hijrah. Sultan himself advanced to meet the threat. He left the capital on the 8th of Shawwal and arrived at Damascus on the 23rd of the month. So we know they have to travel by camels, and there's no other things to travel by. Not sure the wheels were invented then. Maybe it was there. Right, anyway, so it took some time to travel. Ibn Taymiyyah also accompanied the Sultan. In Damascus, he was given a rousing reception by the citizens. He came from Damascus, right? And so they had many people actually knew him, and they honored him, and they appreciated his work in Damascus. We saw how he worked against various groups of people when after the Tatar retreated and decided not to attack Damascus, right? So they saw and they appreciated what he did. Ibn Taymiyyah had come with the intention of participating in the holy war against the Tatars, but on reaching Damascus, he came to know that the invading Tatar army had retired. So again, the Tatar army gave up attacking the Muslims. He went to Jerusalem with the intention of visiting Baitul Maqdis. He returned to Damascus after completing the pilgrimage on the 1st of Zulqa'dah. All right, pilgrimage to Baitul Maqdis, not the pilgrimage of Hajj, because you cannot be returning from the Hajj pilgrimage on the 1st of Zulqa'dah, because Zulqa'dah is the month that people go for Hajj, right? Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, and Muharram, three haram months. It comes together to honor Hajj, the Hajj pilgrimage, to protect the Hajj pilgrimage. Attention paid to juristic issues. Ibn Taymiyyah again got himself busy on his return to Damascus in the intellectual and religious pursuits. But there was a difference at this time in his literary engagements. Earlier, he had paid more attention to the scholastic issues relating to the cult and creed, which were the subject of a lively deliberation within the Ash'arites and the Hanbalites. But now he devoted his thought to the juristic problem. So there is more of Aqidah, right? Aqidah issues between Ash'aris and the Hanbalis, and there were quite a lot of talk on it, and he was involved with them. But now he decided to go on to the rules of juristic problems would be fiqh. Seems that Ibn Taymiyyah felt that the dialectical problems did not require his attention anymore, for he had clearly expounded its contentious issues in his earlier speeches and writings. So, where he's concerned, has done what he can do concerning the problem between the Ash'arites and the Hanbalites. So, enough has been done. So, he's moving on to what is more critical. Ibn Taymiyyah was a Hanbalite like his forefathers, and most of the legal opinions given by him conformed to that school, but he did not follow the Hanbalite school exclusively. Of a truth, no scholar of Ibn Taymiyyah's compass of mind, having an insight into the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith, as well as the objectives, principles, and rules of the application evolved by the earlier juristic school, could possibly remain a blind follower of any particular juristic school. So that's the reality. People say that people like us, they say taklid buta. Taklid buta means to follow the imams blindly. But what can we do? We are not scholars, right? Like for example, we grow up with Imam Shafi'i, rulings of Imam Shafi'i. So you live life following the rulings of Imam Shafi'i. And people say, wow, why you follow him blindly? He's not infallible. He makes mistakes. Also, why not look at Imam Hanafi? Why not look at Imam Maliki? You know, all these things are great. All these people are great scholars. Yes, they are. I know they are. But it's not going to be easy for me because I don't have that kind of knowledge to analyze whatever they have done. Right, Imam Maliki, Imam Hanbali, and all those people, and I believe, and since the scholars have agreed that we can choose any one of these four because they have done their work and they are real scholars in their own rights. For example, Imam Shafi'i, he traveled far. He was from Mecca, he went to Medina, he went to Iraq, he went to I think it was from Medina, I remember. Yeah, but he met many Sahabas, you know, and I'm not sure that he met Sahabas. He met Tabi'ins and he learned a lot, and he had memorized the Quran, he memorized the Hadith, and his Arabic is profound. I mean, why should I listen to him? I want to be able to do better than him, right? So likewise, so that is why when some ustads in Singapore started to make ruling comparisons between the various schools of thoughts, it becomes quite a problem for some people. I mean, yes, they went to their universities and they are scholars, yeah, right. They were taught the various reasons for various different rulings and the various madhab. But for them to present it to us, we do not. Are we supposed to choose and then pick and choose which we like, and that's going to be very difficult for us. So it's best for us to just remain in one madhab. And that is why, like the Muhammadiyas, not saying that they are wrong, but they try to come out with a new set of rulings. Although initially the Muhammadiyas were like not against, they felt that having four mazhab is going to cause disunity in the ummah. So why not have one madhab? Why not look at the hadith and the Quran itself and come up with the rulings? But these four scholars that we have, these four imams that we are looking at, first is Imam Hanafi, then Imam Shafi'i, then Imam Maliki, so Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and then Hanbali. They all look at the Quran and hadith. And when you learn into the Quran and the Hadith, and they are experts in Arabic language. You see, some of us make rulings for the youngsters nowadays. They want to find any ruling, they just Google. And they Google and they see this Hadith. They don't even know. I mean, this Hadith is translated Hadith. What is the actual Arabic? They don't even know. So that is why this they make different rulings because they have different principles that they place on deriving rulings. It's not easy to derive rulings when you have so many hadiths and so many, and you look at the Quran, you look at the hadith, sometimes maybe the hadith has a slight difference to the Quran and things like that. So how? Then for example, I always give this example from Hamza Yusuf, was saying, just a very simple example to understand the difficulty in formulating rulings of the religion. And like for example, there is this hadith which says that it's good for us to fast 6 days, right? Min Shawwal. What is min? Min Shawwal. So min Shawwal means from Shawwal. So Imam Shafi'i, he interpreted it as to fast 6 days in Shawwal. So that was the interpretation of Imam Shafi'i, and you fast 6 days in Shawwal, and you get the reward of 1 year of fast, right? But Imam Maliki, who's an Arab himself, right? All the 4 Imams, all the 3 Imams are Arab. Only Imam Hanafi was a Persian, but very, very, very proficient in Arabic. Imam Maliki says that the min means that from Shawwal onwards you can fast. So it doesn't have to be only in Shawwal. Because what min can be from Shawwal onwards. That's what it means, from Shawwal or from Shawwal itself. You follow what I'm saying, right? So that's a difference of opinion. That's how the differences of opinion arise, not because he wants to have a different ruling. Like Imam Shafi'i was the student of Imam Maliki, and he had a book in which he wrote why he disagreed with the opinions of Imam Maliki. He had his own set of opinions, right? So and they based on really strong foundations in which they form their rulings. And also, why are the rulings made? Some people wonder that. Well, as mentioned, when we've gone through Imam Hanafi, we went to Imam Hanbali. We've gone through Imam Hanafi at one time during our classes years ago. Because when Islam spread so fast to many countries, and there are many issues that has to be looked into. So Imam Hanafi realized that there is a need to compile all these rulings, right? The situations and the rulings, so that it becomes easier for the masses to practice the religion. Right. So, but in this case of Ibn Taymiyyah, despite there are many rulings that came out from various scholars, but only 4 of these are strong ones. Ibn Taymiyyah himself, Imam Ghazali was a Shafi'i, but he didn't follow through every single ruling of Imam Shafi'i, because he himself has that knowledge, and he can actually give his own opinions, just like Imam Taymiyyah also. So it's not that he's against the Hanbalis or Imam Hanbal, but he comes up with his own opinion also because of his extensive knowledge. So in specific matters, therefore, he preferred a school which more appealed to reason, or which he found upheld by a greater number of the Prophet's companions and their successors. So he has his opinion, right? He has his own reason, and he comes up with what appeals to his reason, and he studies opinions of scholars, of companions and successors. But in spite of his erudition and intelligence, he always praised the profound knowledge, creative thought, honesty, and piety of the precursors of all the juristic schools, whom he regarded as scholars, correctly basing their rules of interpretation on the principles of Quran, the Sunnah, Ijma, and Qiyas. Ijma is opinion. Ijma is collective opinion, and the Qiyas is opinions based on situations, and we actually make we apply the ruling that is given by Rasulullah SAW to a different situation, and we formulate new rulings. That's called Qiyas. All right, so this is the reality of it all. There are definitely the 4 imams, the imams that come up with the juristic opinions. They have profound knowledge, and they are very creative in the way they formulate rulings, right? Creative, not unfounded creativity, but creative in thinking through the various rulings. They're honest and they're pious, right? And they make their rules on proper principles and proper foundations. He never liked those who sought to destroy or discard what previous generations had built up, nor he favored those who showed disrespect to the earlier imam. So this is his position, right? He saw that they have done good, they have done a lot of good work, right? And their opinions are sound opinions. And sound means very good opinions, right? Strong opinions. And people who try to find faults and try to remove whatever disciple has done, he is not agreeable with them. It doesn't show any disrespect to the earlier imams. The questions of the 3 talaq. Just as Ibn Taymiyyah often rejected the Hanbalite view in a few cases, he drew up his statement of legal position disagreeing with all the four principal juristic schools. So it seems that all the schools agree with this concept of three talaq. Now, what is this three talaq? Talaq means to divorce. In these cases, too, he claims to have inferred directly from the express laws of the scripture and the tradition. So, where he's concerned, he looked at the hadith, or he has the capacity to do that. We don't. You see. Right? So he looks at the hadith and he looks at the Quran, the Quran scriptures, the Quran and hadith traditions in the hadith, and he formulates his own rulings. On such case in which he differed with all the other juristic schools related to the repudiation of one's wife by 3 sentences of divorce, all given at a time. What is this? This ruling came about, all right? They agree that if a man, he says to a wife, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. Right? Some of, as mentioned here, all four schools of thought regard that as 3 divorces. All right, now, what is this 3 divorces all about? We know in the Quran it is mentioned that a man is allowed 3 chances in divorces. First divorce, he can call back his wife. Second divorce, he can call back his wife. But if he's going to third divorce, then no way he can come back to his wife. Right? So he is of the opinion that even if a man says, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you 3 times, or he said, I give you 3 talaqs, that's it, we will never get back together, he is of the opinion, no, it constitutes 1 talaq. In Singapore also, there are a number of cases in which the Sharia court actually ruled that the man who gave 3 talaqs, right, they will actually look at the situations, right, and then there are many cases in which it's considered as 1 talaq. Okay. So, in fact, in Singapore, the Sharia courts have got very strict rulings on talaq. Like maybe some of you us might have grown up thinking, believing, right, on certain rulings, or we live on certain rulings that say that even if you are angry and you say talaq to your wife, or I divorce you out of anger, or even if you are drunk and you say I divorce you, then divorce falls. That means that's already counted as 1 talaq. Not in the Singapore the Sharia court. It has to be seen whether the man really intends divorce. So if the man doesn't intend divorce and the man denies wanting to divorce, then the ruling would be that there was no divorce. So these are all scholarly rulings and not for us to dwell into. So the question of whether a divorce does pronounce thrice at a time. So one time you pronounce 3 divorces, although offending the law, as well as irregular and sinful according to all juristic schools, and the consensus of Muslims took legal effect or not. So he's saying that although this is very wrong of a man to do that, right, to give no chance to the wife completely at all, 3 divorces and that's it is sinful, according to the law of all the schools, right? And but the question is, the Muslims also consider it sinful, right, in Islam, but is it effective or not? What does it mean? Is it going to be, by saying 3 divorces, does it mean he cannot go back to his wife at all? That's what it means. Does it take effect or not? Is it considered as 1 divorce, or is it considered as 3 divorces? So these issues, the issues this question raised were whether revocation of such a divorce was possible or not. So whether the 3 statements of divorce would be reckoned as 1 revocable pronouncement or taken as an irreversible separation. So whether the wife so divorced could return to her husband or not without halala. Now halala is for her, the ruling of the 3 divorces, that once he divorced a 3rd time, for her to return to her first husband, the husband who divorced her, she must marry another man and consummate the marriage, and then the second husband is to divorce her, and so that the first husband can take her back. Right? Some people actually it's called I remember, it's a Malay word for it. Sambuta, I can't remember. So this man, sometimes, this man, he divorced his wife 3 times already. Then he regretted divorcing his wife 3 times. And he wants to get back to the wife. And there's no other way but for another man to marry his wife, consummate, and then divorce the wife. So what he did was that he would call a man and pay him money. You marry my wife, okay? And then you be with her for 1 night. And then the next night day, you just divorce her so that I can marry her. That one you not allowed. All right? There's a like going around the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the earlier jurists and traditions such as Auza'i, Nakh'i, Thawri, Ishaq bin Rahuwai, Abu Thar, Bukhari, as also a majority of Prophet's companions and the descendants had held the view that such a pronouncement, however sinful and heterodox, would sufficiently amount to an implied divorce taking legal effect. So these are the opinions of those that it is effective. This view found support from several traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he had held all the three sentences of such a divorce as separate pronouncements and ordered the wife to be irreversibly divorced. So this is they base this on incidences in the Prophet's time when he allowed the three divorces mentioned at one go, right, to be considered as irreversible. Ibn Taymiyyah and some of his friends and disciples, on the contrary, held that the three sentences of divorce should be regarded as one revocable divorce. So he formulated this view on the basis of the Quran, the traditions, and analogy, and gave sufficient weighty reasons in support of his viewpoint. So there we go, right? So he has this, the Quran, he sees it in the verses of the Quran, he has the traditions and all the things that qisas, analogy, like qisas, and he comes to a conclusion that it is revocable. Right? So as you can see, it's not easy. You must have very intensive knowledge, you must have proper understanding, and you must know a lot of hadith and Quran out. The Quran, of course, Quran makes a lot of hadiths, right? That is why Imam Hanafi, whenever he wants to make a ruling, he would call his students, which number about 1,000, right, and present the case. And he asked all the students to come up with all the hadiths pertaining to the case, and then discuss about it, and then he would decide on the ruling. Because sometimes they were aware that there are hadiths which are not known to them but known to others, so they actually do that. We can't do that. I mean, no matter we Google here, Google there, we might only have one opinion of a person, and we don't know where the person gets his opinion from, and we don't know whether he really understands Arabic or not. It's all there. All right, so another ruling that he was looking into was divorce by swearing. There was another form of divorce in which Ibn Taymiyyah held a view different from all other jurists, and which had an important bearing upon the relationship between the government, the then government, and the people. A common form of divorce in those days was to asseverate, is to make it one's veracity, or will do a thing under oath on the penalty of divorcing one's wife. For example, its common form was to say to one's wife, I shall do or not do this, otherwise you will be divorced. It means if I do this, then you will be divorced. So it's a swear. So I will not do this. And for example, like maybe he has a, can be petty also, right? Cousins, yes, he has a brother. Let's just give an example. So his brother, he doesn't like his brother. So if I come back to my brother and reconcile with my brother, then you will be divorced. Example. So that's not very good example. Maybe I can come up with better examples. Anyway, so that's what it was. So during the governorship of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, the oath of fealty made to the rulers was also linked with it, which stipulated that in the case of breaking that oath, the separation from one's wife would also automatically take place. For example, like the man says that if I ever go against one of the rule of the country, then my wife is divorced. That kind of things people do say. So in response to a request for a statement on the juristic position of such divorces, Ibn Taymiyyah expressed the legal opinion that such a declaration constitutes a simple oath affirming to do or not to do a thing, and where a swearer failed in its fulfillment, expiation was incumbent on him, but the failure did not take the legal effect of separation between him and his wife. So his opinion is this: there is a ruling on swearing. So what the person has done is to swear, but the ruling on swearing doesn't say that if you do not abide by what you swear or what you swore, then you divorce your wife, because there is no such ruling in Islam. The ruling in Islam is that if you can't keep to what you have sworn to, then the first thing is to feed 10 poor people. And then if you can't feed 10 poor people, then you release a slave. If you can't release a slave because you don't have a slave, then you'll fast 3 days in a row. So these are the ruling, right? So there's no such ruling as I'm going to divorce my wife. So where it's concerned, this is nonsense, right? So it doesn't hold. So Ibn Taymiyyah cited in his support the legal opinions of certain earlier jurists, but his view deviated from the consensus of juristic Rabbinics on that point. So there are many other scholars who are not agreeing with him, but that was his view. This naturally caused vexation among the theologians who tried to forbid Ibn Taymiyyah from expressing legal opinions in such cases. So because they are upset with him giving his opinions, they actually stopped him from doing it. So on Tuesday, the 5th of Rabiul Awal, writes Ibn Kathir under the annals of 718 after Hijrah, the chief Qazi Shamsuddin Ibn Muslim met Ibn Taymiyyah and advised him not to express his legal opinions on cases pertaining to divorces by swearing, which might be referred to him. So he doesn't agree. He told Ibn Taymiyyah not to do that. All right, not to give any opinion on divorces by swearing, because these will be referred to him and he will judge. So the Sheikh accepted his advice and promised to act likewise in deference to the wishes of the chief Qazi and other jurors. So he just, okay, I'm going to do that. Then in the beginning of Jamad al-Awwal, a royal edict was received from Cairo, which prohibited Ibn Taymiyyah from giving legal opinions in such cases. And now that becomes a ruling, right? Came. At first it was just a request, but now it becomes a ruling. The royal mandate was read out in the gathering, and Ibn Taymiyyah promised to abide by it. Thereafter, it seems Ibn Taymiyyah reconsidered the matter and reached the conclusion that the administration had no right to interfere in this matter, nor was it proper for him to desist from expressing what he believed to be right for fear of government. Accordingly, he again started giving legal opinions in these cases. So there goes, right? After agreeing to them, after some time, he come to realize that it's not right for him to agree. Why should he be afraid of the government? Right? And anyway, he's giving his opinion, which he believes is right, and it should not be, they should not interfere in these matters. And so he's just doing things that's right, which he believes is right. So on Tuesday, the 22nd Rajab 720 after Hijrah, a council of theologians and jurists was convened by the governor of Syria to consider the complaint against Ibn Taymiyyah. His opinions actually caused a lot of unhappiness among some people. It was decided to detain him in the citadel, where he was transferred the same day. He remained in this preventive retention for 5 months and 18 days and was released on the orders received directly from Cairo on the 10th of Muharram, 721 after Hijrah. So a few months only. The last imprisonment. For about 5.5 years, between 721 to 726, Ibn Taymiyyah devoted himself again to teaching in Madrasa Hanbaliyah and his own madrasa in Qasasin, pouring forth his encyclopedic knowledge. He also revised some of his older works, because sometimes these scholars they actually change their opinions because they have traveled far and they have gone through, they have met other scholars and have discussed things with other scholars, and they come up with different, and they do revise their older works. And for example, even Imam Shafi'i has a set of rulings when he was in Mecca, but when he traveled to Iraq and then finally settled in Egypt, he come up with another new set of rulings. And we, the Shafi'is, actually are following his later rulings. But Hanbalis, because Imam Ahmad Hanbal was a student of Imam Shafi'i, he actually held on to the old rulings of Imam Shafi'i. And of course, he has his other opinions, also being a man of high caliber and high knowledge. His ready pen would have perhaps produced some more classical works, but his intellectual brilliance and preeminent individuality, which tended to overshadow his contemporaries, was a constant cause of trouble for him. So because he's so smart, and when he gives opinions, he really was able to present it in the best of manners, right? People are not very happy. There's always, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, the Bani Israel, they come about, they had differences of opinion after the truth is obvious to them because of envy. And envy does not escape our ulama. Some of them very, 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 very trained, very, very scholarly, very knowledgeable, still they are affected by envy. It's mentioned in a hadith that 1 in 3 ulama will end up in hellfire. Protect us all from the hellfire and help our ulama to see things in the best of ways, the way of Rasulullah Sallallahu. So he had problem after problem. Ibn Taymiyyah had expressed a legal opinion 17 years back that no journey to a shrine, even if it to be the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, should be undertaken as an act of devotion under Sharia. What he's saying is this. He says that if you make an intention to visit the Prophet ﷺ, the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, that is not considered as an ibadah. It's an act of devotion under the Sharia. So he says that his opinion is 17 years ago. He has based his opinion on a tradition which said, do not saddle a dormitory. Dormitory is a camel, except for 3 mosques. That means do not go for ibadah except for 3 mosques: the Masjid Haram, Masjid al-Nabawi, and Masjid al-Aqsa. These are only 3 places that you can visit with ibadah, intention of ibadah. Right. Travel, basically. Taymiyyah had explained how the pilgrimage to shrines of saints opened the door to ascribing divine powers to the saints and performance of ceremonies which imply reliance on beings other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there was issues then that caused him to present such opinions, because human beings, as human beings, it has been quite a tradition of people to revere saints, right? Saints. And in their reverence of the saints, they actually visit their graves of the saints and consider it as a pilgrimage also. All right. And then they would even ask the saints for help in some sense, believing that the saints have power to do things. That is when the shirk comes in. Right, a power. They have divine powers to the saints. But if you go to a maqam of an awliya, that's why people have differences of opinion again. And some people would accuse Habib Umar from Tarib of being involved with grave worshipping, which is of course not true. As lay persons, we should not be involved with such things without knowledge. We should not be affected by words of people who say such things, right? Maybe it sounds logical, but we need to know the truth of what practices these people have. Right? So some of them actually would go to the grave. Yes, they would ask the help of these saints. But then again, as Hamza Yusuf pointed out, when the saints are alive, we would go to the saints to ask for help. Just like we go to anyone to ask for help. Can you please help me to, can you please dua for me? Help dua for me so that my children, I've got a child, kind of thing. So they have the position that these awliyas are still fresh in their graves. That means they are not, they are blessed with Allah to hear and to actually be able to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah also, people have gone to the Prophet's Prophet's grave and say, Ya Rasulullah, calling on to him, knowing that he can hear, can you please dua for me, please dua for me, that, right? And as if he's alive. But they do not attribute divine powers to these individuals, like they have the power to give you a child. No, right? These individuals, as when they were alive, they would dua to Allah. Also, these individuals turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? We do go to very religious people, very pious people to make du'as for us, because we believe that their du'as are much more easily accepted than our du'as, considering that maybe we sin a lot and we don't even do much of Sunnah X. The Prophet ﷺ has said that, those people who did the wajibs and then add on to the Sunnah X and everything, Allah will accept their du'as very easily. So these are the things, opinions. But then here again, because what we see Ibn Taymiyyah doing is because there was a ritual of visiting or doing pilgrimages to the shrines of saints. That he considered wrong. So he comes around and said, no visit to any grave is considered as a religious, as a pilgrimage, right? Yes, we are allowed to visit graves, right, with good intentions. What is our intention? To visit grave, to honor Rasulullah SAW, visit grave to be reminded of the Prophet SAW, and also it's a sunnah of the Prophet that we visit graves so that we remember the death and things. But it cannot be a pilgrimage. So you've got to understand where it's coming from. and they started doing ceremonies, which in India you can see a lot of this. Maybe also in Iraq. We don't know because we don't really get, none of us in our lifetime has been able to, most of us, I suppose. Some of you might have gone to Iraq. But the sad thing that Iraq is in that state that we are not able to even visit the various holy places in Iraq. But still, it's not a pilgrimage. That is his point here. So in his support has cited several other traditions of the Prophet saying, the curse of Allah be on the Jews and the Christians who have turned the graves of their prophets into places of worship. Or, Ya Allah, oh Allah, do not make an idol of my grave that it may be worshipped. That is why the Saudis are also very careful about how people over-revere the Prophet's grave so much so they might even end up worshipping if strict rules are not implemented at the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. The enemies of Ibn Taymiyyah unearthed the 17-year-old statement of legal opinion to discredit him among the ignorant folk. So they use the ignorant folk, right, to stir unhappiness. Because the ignorant folk are all in, most of them, quite a lot of them are into visiting graves and consider them as pilgrimages. It was given wide publicity in order to injure the susceptibilities of the masses on the one hand, who considered it an act of great merit to visit the Prophet's grave, and to enlist the support of the theologians on the other against a man at odds with the unanimous view. So you can see there's a lot of instigation going on, right, to stir up hatred for Ibn Taymiyyah. This did have the desired effect, as the feelings of the masses were stirred up to an extent that the administration felt obliged to intervene in the matter. The order to put him again behind the bars was issued on the 7th of Sha'ban, 726 after Hijrah. When the news was communicated to Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, I was looking forward to it. It was a lot of goodness and grace. He likes to be in jail. Sometimes it's easier to do work in the jail, as we saw when he was in jail in Egypt, right? He converted the whole of the jailbirds and they became great Muslims. Ibn Taymiyyah was taken to the Damascus citadel. A subsistence allowance, small allowance, was fixed for him, and his brother Zainuddin Abdul Rahman Ibn Taymiyyah was allowed to remain with him. So his brother stayed with him. The detention of Ibn Taymiyyah was a victory achieved by his adversaries. His friends and disciples were manhandled, and some of them were even ordered to be cast into prison. They were all released after a few days, but Hafiz ibn Qayyum, one of the devoted disciples of Ibn Taymiyyah, remained with his mentor in detention till his death. So he died in the prison. All right, let's stop here and take a break with
والصلاة والسلام على أفضل خلق الله على سيدنا وحبيبنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحابته. In the books that they left behind.
Sorry, I didn't realize this one is just audio and no video. I'll get a video for you. Sorry.
الحمد لله إن الحمد لله. May Allah's blessing علينا نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. إن الله معنا قل ما يعلم الله والله هو. صدق رسول الله ونطق حبيب الله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah's blessings, mercy, and peace be upon us. We thank Allah. We believe in Him. We rely upon Him alone. We ask for His help. We seek refuge in Him from the evils of our actions. Dear respected brothers and sisters, everything in the universe, living or non-living, glorifies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at every moment.
Sorry.
In fact, there is a turning towards
Sorry. This already. Jakarta. Allah's plan for you. Did we do this? Sorry, I didn't have time to find a good video actually.
When your children are little, when they're 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, you know what the most important thing is? I have 5 of those, I could tell you. The most important thing to them is your approval. They want to make you proud, man. They want to show you what they did. I'll be on an important work phone call, and my son will come over, my 2-year-old will come over. Abba. I'm like, okay, hold on. What is it? Nothing. I'll go back on the phone and he'll start calling me again. I'll be like, okay. What is it? I'll show you something. What do you want to show me? That is it. But you know what I'm supposed to do? Oh my God, that's awesome. Do it again. I'll call you back. You're supposed to appreciate what your children do. They live for that. They desire that more than anything else. I have 3 girls, and you know the difference between girls and boys. Boys can't sit still, and girls can't stop this, right? So I pick my girls up from school. One's in 1st grade, the other's in 3rd grade. I pick them up from school. It's a 25-minute ride back home, and what are they doing the whole way? You know what happened today in class? We colored a dinosaur, and we did this and that, and I was coloring it purple, but I decided to put in some green, and they're going on and on and on and on and on, and they cannot help themselves, and they cannot stop, and I have to pay attention and listen. I have to listen and say, oh, what about blue? No, I did only a little bit blue, right? I have to pay attention. And you know why I'm saying all of this? Just one more story on the side, just to wake you up a little. I share this story all the time. My oldest daughter, my eldest, Hosna, she's when she was younger, she was really into finger painting. So she'd dip her hands in paint and just making a big old mess, right? And she brings this big cardboard to me, and it's a big blob of blue. I don't see anything, right? And she says, Abba, look what I made. And I'm sitting there going, that's awesome, a mountain. And she says, no, it's Mama. And I was like, oh, don't tell Mama. But the point I'm trying to make is they live for your approval. Live for it. But those of you that have children that are teenagers, do they get in the car when you pick them up from school and they can't stop telling you about what happened? Does that happen? Now, you know what happened in school today? My teacher said this and that and the other, and I got an A on my paper. Nope, they're quiet. And you're trying to know, how was your day? It was okay. So what'd you do? Something. Where are you going today? Somewhere. They don't talk. Getting them to talk is like an interrogation at a police station. And they're not saying anything to you. And while trying to ask them questions, they're texting their friend, my dad is asking too many questions today. You know, I don't know what's up. Did you tell him something? What I'm trying to get at is very simple. At a younger age, your children crave your attention. And when they get older, you will crave their attention. But if you don't give them attention when they're tiny, when they come to you with their toys and you say, go in your room, I'm watching the news. The game is on. Could you take him, please? Come on, I had a long day at work. I don't want to deal with this right now. I have friends over. It's embarrassing. Go to sleep. Go get out of here. When you have this attitude towards your children, like they're an obstacle in your path, your job was at work. When you come home, you're on vacation. No, buddy, your job began when you came home. That's your job. What you did over there is just to fulfill your real job at home. Be a father. I'm talking to the men here. Be a father. Spend time with your children. They're not just there so you think you can put them in school and you come home from work, you just want to go to sleep. You don't want to bother anybody. You don't want to talk to them. And actually, the easiest way to not talk to them is get them an iPod Touch and an iPhone, and get them a computer and a laptop in their own room with high-speed internet, so you don't even have to look at their face. They could just be in their room all day Facebooking, finding themselves a new set of parents online. Seriously, be a father, be a mother. Don't replace your motherhood and your fatherhood with these things, because if you do, when they become independent, you know what happens to most parents? To most of you, your children, they only see you as a bunch of dollar signs walking around. And the only time they come and talk to you, Dad, can I have $5? Actually, nobody asks for $5 anymore, right? It's 20s nowadays. And I know youth, they haven't seen money that small. They don't know fives. Can I have $20? Can I go to the mall? Can you drop me off? Can I go over to my friend's house? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do the other? When they want something, they come to you. Otherwise, you don't see them. And when they get to a certain age where they are old enough to make their own little bit of money, guess what? You're not going to see them at all, because your cash register is no longer relevant. That's no longer relevant. If this is the relationship you are setting yourself up for, you're headed for destruction. We got to change this now. And the way to change it, and it's going to be hard for a lot of you to implement this, but we have to be friends with our children. We have to be their best friends. They should enjoy hanging out with us the most, the parents. The parents should not be a nuisance. The parents should be a joy to children. They should be a joy to them. And being good parents doesn't mean you get them toys and you get them nice things and you get them nice clothes. That's all there and that's fine and dandy. But the most important thing you give them right now is your time, especially in this society where so many things are pulling away at their time. And the thing you are not able to give them, you can give them their own room, you can give them money, you can give them allowance, you can give them clothes, but you don't give them time. And when you don't give them time, they separate themselves mentally from you. They cut themselves off. They learn to become independent at an early age. And independent in this society really means alienated. It doesn't just mean independent. This is a serious matter on how to raise our children. We have to openly communicate with them. And that's the other thing. And part of this communication, only one more thing about parenting before I go to marriage. Just one more basic thing about parenting in this society. You know, there are certain things in Islam that are absolutely unacceptable. They're taboo, they're forbidden, they're haram, they're evil. But our children see them every day. They see this stuff every day. You can't even avoid it. They're looking out their window and they see a billboard. You know, they're just watching cartoons and an ad comes on. They see this stuff and most of you put them in school. And I don't even say Islamic schools are safe, because most kids in Islamic school are watching the same shows that the kids in public school are watching. And they're talking about it at the school too. Let's face reality for a moment. They are exposed to a lot of stuff. They really are. So the first time your daughter comes home and starts talking about some Disney boy that they're pushing in the media, or some girl that sings a lot of songs, and these are filthy role models, filthy. They're worse than animals. I'd rather my children watch like puppet animals than watch these people, because they behave worse than animals, wallahi. The Hannah Montanas of the world are the filth of the planet. They really are. And I've seen this, little Muslim girls with hijab on, going to Islamic school with a Hannah Montana book bag. What is wrong with you, parents? What happened to you? This is unacceptable. But when your children bring something like that up, they say something like that. They say something that is completely unacceptable to you. What happens to most parents? This is wrong. We don't talk about these things. Astaghfirullah. Say astaghfirullah. It's like, wow. Fine, I guess you don't want to talk about it. I'll just talk to my friends about it then. And you know what you did? You basically told them, if you have something that is of this nature, of a controversial nature, don't talk to me about it. But does that mean they'll not talk about it at all? They will talk to someone, and who's it going to be? Their friends. Most of the time, they're non-Muslim friends, from whom they will get non-Muslim kinds of advice. You close the doors to communication. And me being from the background I am, my ancestry is Afghan. So I have a hot temper. So my daughter came home one day, preschool. My daughter was in preschool, but we're very possessive of our daughters, you know. So she comes home and she says, you know, Ahmed was so funny in class today. I was like, who's Ahmed? And my wife says to me, calm down, let me talk to her. You go away, you can't handle this. And she talks to him, it was nothing. He just fell off the chair. She was saying it was funny. It's very innocent. But if she hears my dad really gets upset when he hears the name Ahmad or Sharif or whatever, so I better not bring it up. I better not tell my parents what happened at school. Then I've shut the doors of communication. I've made that mistake. And a lot of parents made that mistake and they're paying the price now. And they're listening to this and they're shedding tears because they're remembering the mistakes they made. They really are.
It's about us listening.
All right. Sorry for the glitch. Continue with our al-Wafi. Right, the 14th hadith. Hurmatu damil Muslim. Okay, we did that, right? Honoring the blood of the Muslim. And Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, from Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, La yahillu dammum ri'im muslimin yashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anni Rasulullahi illa bi ihda thalath, and not halal the blood of a Muslim that says the shahada, there is no God but Allah, that I am the Rasul of Allah, except for three things. A-thayyibul zan, a married, a fornicator, a married fornicator. An-nafsu bin nafsu, one who kills the soul, and what tariku li dini, one who lives the religion. Al-mufariqu lil jama'a, and separate from the community, from the group. Rawahul Bukhari wa Muslim. All right. So that's it. The sanctity of the Muslims' blood. Muslims can only be killed for three reasons. Only for three reasons. That's what the hadith is all about. Right? Three reasons are killing a person directly without the without any right. Fornication after becoming married, and apostasy. The three things that cause you can shed the blood of a Muslim. No other reasons that you can shed the blood of a Muslim. Right, then we talk about the stoning of the fornicator, and we discuss and that only when they are married, they have to be stoned till death. But if they are not married and they commit sin, fornication, then they will be, I think, lashed 80 times or 100 times, I can't remember. Retaliation allowed in killing. So we talk about retaliation in killing, right? And we talk about it also with Ibn Taymiyyah, that you cannot take things into your own hands, right? It must be according to the ruling of the country. And also there is this ruling in Islam in which you can actually not cause him to be killed, but to get compensation. They call it blood money. I want to forgive if you want to forgive. Punishment for apostasy. So there is a few rulings on the punishment of apostasy that we went through. Right? If they leave Islam and they start finding faults with Islam and trying to degrade religion and things like that, and we can they can be killed. But then again, it has to be from the ruling of the government. The government will decide. The qadi, the institution will decide whether they should be punished or not. Not praying. Why is it not praying here? Because not praying is considered as leaving the religion if you don't pray. This is opinions of some scholars. Most scholars actually, Ishma. If you don't pray because you consider it as not wajib. But if you don't pray because you're lazy, then you are a fasiq. That means one who is disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, so that's the main points that we had of the previous hadith. Then we go on to the 15th hadith. من خصال الإيمان القول حسن ورعاية حق الضيف والجار. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم جاره ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه رواه البخاري ومسلم. The translation: some of the qualities of faith. speaking well and observing the rights of guests and neighbors. It is on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him speak well or remain silent. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him honor his neighbor. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him honor his guests. So talks about believing in Allah in the last day. 3 things he has identified here. 3 things which are very, very critical here. Okay, let's look at the explanation of the hadith. Al-Bukhari has collected the hadith in the book of etiquette. So it's under behavior and etiquette manners chapter. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day, let him not harm his neighbor. Muslim has collected in the faith, the chapter on strongly encouraging that one honor neighbors and guests and remain silent except for speaking what is good and all that is from faith. So there's 2 only, we have 2, it is collected in 2 books, Bukhari and Muslim. Its importance. Ibn Hajar says in his commentary on the Sahih al-Bukhari, this is an example of comprehensive speech. The hadith comprises 3 matters that bring together good manners both in word and deed. One can also refer to the importance of the 13th hadith. All right, so basically the 13th hadith also talk about manners. It's about the 13th hadith was the hadith on the good of a Muslim is that he doesn't get involved with things that does not concern him. So that's under manners also. So here's under manners, relationship with people. Language of the hadith. Yu'min, complete faith, which saves one from Allah's punishment and leads one to his pleasure. So those who have Alladhina yu'minuna billahi, those who believe in Allah, yu'minuna billahi. The foundation of faith is affirmation and obedience. That means you affirm that there is no God but Allah and you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You affirm that Rasulullah is the messenger of Allah and you abide by the rulings that he's brought from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Yawm al-Akhir, we are aware of that. Akhir is the last day. The other day, the Akhir is not last actually, it's the other world, the other day. So this is the present day and the other day. So the day of standing, which is when deeds will be rewarded and recompensed. So we know it's a day, Yawm al-Akhir is a day we'll meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, we call it Akhirah also. And then we would be recompensed according to our deeds. So this is the hadith. They are smote to remain silent. That's the word I use there. And then fal yukrim jarahu. Fal yukrim, then yukrim, the word karim, then honor, right, or be good. Jarah is jiran. Cause him to have goodness and protect him from harm and evil. Fal yukrim daifahu, that is daifa, who then honors him. The word is fal yukrim there, daifahu, that means to give him a hospitable reception, which is to serve him a meal and the like and to treat him well. So we are advised to treat our guests well. The guests have our rights on us. For 3 days and 3 nights. His right is to live here for 3 nights. Our guests, of course, nowadays not everybody will allow anybody to come and stay in your house, right? And of course to feed them, to be good to them. All right, anyway. Legal matters and other guidance from the hadith. Man and his relationship with the community. Man lives in this world and with other people, and there are relationships and connections between him and them. So man lives in this world with other people and there are relationships and connections between him and them. It's reality. We live in this world. We are a social being, social creature. We need to live with with the people around us. And Islam teaches us how to behave so that things will be good. He needs them and they need him. Can't live alone and not need anyone at all around us. Islam strives for these relationships to be based on strong foundations and a proper way. Right, so Islam requires that the relationships are good, they are strong, and found on strong foundations, and we do it properly. This is realized when people honor one another, and in dealing with others, each individual adheres to the etiquettes of transactions and good social relations, which include speaking well, being a kind neighbor, and showing proper hospitality. So all these things are grouped under manners, etiquettes of transactions. That means we do things with proper direction, proper ways of doing things, so that we don't insult people, we don't dishonor people, we don't aggravate people, right? So it's important how we speak, it's important how we behave towards people. But here we are identified with a relationship with neighbor and guests. This is what Rasulullah SAW is strongly encouraging us to do in this hadith. It is one of the signs of complete faith that one speaks well and remains silent concerning everything else. So whenever you want to say anything, make sure you say things which are good. Say things which are encouraging, right? Do not condemn people all the time. Sometimes maybe if you are close to that person, you don't do it in the condemning voice or criticizing voice. Try to make it more palatable. Try to make it more positive in your approach, right? And it's not impossible. It's a matter of training, right? But if you always get agitated all the time with questions and things like that, then it becomes a big problem to all. All right. In this hadith, Rasulullah SAW is strongly encouraging us to have the greatest qualities of goodness and the most beneficial actions of righteousness. So here is to help us to show the world that as Muslims, we are blessed with good manners. As taught by Rasulullah SAW. He's making it clear to us that it is from perfect faith. Now, those who believe in Allah and the last day, you believe in Allah, you know He is your God, and the last day, you know you'll be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are very careful. So if you have these two beliefs, then you'll be very careful in how you behave. So that's what it means, right? Because you don't want to be questioned, right, on your behavior. So it's making clear to us that it is from perfect faith and complete Islam that the Muslims speak about matters that will benefit him in his worldly life and hereafter, and furthermore will bring felicity, happiness, and happiness to the community. All right, so the way he speaks is very important, right? And we need to bring benefit out. Whatever we do, it is all about wanting to bring benefit to our worldly life and to the hereafter, and happiness to everyone. While at the same time, he should remain silent concerning any matter that tends to cause harm and corruption, and thus necessitate the Arab's anger and wrath. So anything that will cause unhappiness, will cause harm, will cause corruption, will cause disturbances and everything. And we saw Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and how he was very good at handling situations. Of course, then again, we might say that, oh, but he created a lot of problems with his opinions. Yeah, it's not him who created the problem. Actually, he has his opinions. The others are supposed to respect his opinion, right? And not, if they're not happy with it, then they should give their own opinions. But then they stir up trouble by instigating others. So that became a problem. All right. Ahmad has related in his Musnad, this is Imam Ahmad. Imam Ahmad Hanbal usually, this is Ahmad. On the authority of Anas radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a slave's faith is not sound, some is good, until his heart is sound. So if you want to have good faith, then your heart must be good. And his heart is not good until his tongue is good. Sound, no, sound is good. Yeah, if you say things which are bad to people, you condemn people, you accuse people of things, then there's something wrong with your heart. When there's something wrong with your heart, then there's something wrong with your faith. At-Tabarani has also collected a hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu, who said, a slave does not reach the reality of faith until he grieves over his tongue. That means if you are one of strong faith, of real true faith, then you would worry about what your tongue, you would get very sad over what your tongue has said, because the tongue is really, really critical in fostering good relations and showing that you have a good faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you get, you feel sad, you feel like you cry, right? He restrains it from certain speech, which is that which has no good in it. So because of the grief that he has for saying things which are not good, which has no good in it, right? It might be just a normal conversation. Might not be a bad conversation, but it's just waste of time. Doesn't really help you in any way. Doesn't improve anybody. It's just things which are it's called lahwi, useless things. So he grieves because he knows that Allah has blessed the tongue, and the tongue should be in a state of remembering Allah, saying good things, advising people with good, right? Talking, but then people say, how to do that, right? Don't talk so much lah. And you might end up talking nonsense and we talk too much. Don't be once in a while. Don't be so unfriendly, of course. But there's a balance down there also. Not easy. Plunging into speech is a cause of destruction, and guiding the tongue is a path to success. We have already sent a statement from the excellence of what Islam is living what does not concern one, and you know that speaking about that which does not concern you could be a reason for your deeds coming to nothing and you being denied paradise. So be very careful on what you say, right? If it doesn't concern you, don't say it. Right? Be very careful on how you make comments on people. It is none of your concern because you don't really know the realities of people. Sometimes, we get very, very uptight about situations with our friends, whereas we hear only one side of the story. We don't hear the other side of the story, right? Maybe the other side might be not true, but then we need to hear both sides of the story, right? And eventually leave them to decide on their own, unless you really, really can help them. That's different, but else just let them. Thus, when the Muslim wants to speak, he must think before he speaks. It's clear, if it is clear to him that he is talking about is in fact good and rewardable, he should speak. So these are teaching us to improve our state. Okay? We are commoners, all right, and we tend to talk a lot, but this is guiding us. Right? This is what you must see that these are teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. It's just to guide us, to help us, right, to get more rewards in our lives. Right? Try as much as possible to abide by what the Prophet ﷺ has said. And we have gone to the hadith also, which says Rasulullah has said that whatever I forbid, avoid it. Whatever I advised, right, or I command, right, do as much as you can. So he understands that not everything that he has commanded can be is easy. It's easy on everyone. Right? So here is guidance here. And you like, for example, some of us watch movies lah, maybe read a newspaper, which about things which really doesn't concern us, right? And then we start talking about the movies, discussing the movies and things like that. These are the things which are actually useless, right? Of course, we have been so used to it, and it takes time for us to come out with that. But inshallah, by guidance from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we will try our very best not to be getting involved with things that's just not useful to us. If it is clear to him that there is some harm that he is provoking, or some falsehood that is spreading, or is not sure, he should refrain from speaking, as it is better and safer for him, because he will be reckoned for every word he utters, either rewarded or punished. The tongue will be questioned on what he says, why he says all these things. Why do you keep on talking about things which does not benefit you in any way? You talk about, you go to somebody's house and you see lots of furniture and all kinds of things, and then you start telling people about this. This person, the house like this. You don't wonder why he must have all this. People must be really worldly people. This is kind of talk that is not really good because it doesn't concern you. Right? It doesn't concern you what he buys, what he does with his money. This is business. Allah the Exalted has said, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, Ma yalfidu min qawlin illa ladayhi raqibun atid. Not you say a word, utter a word without a watcher by him, pen in hand. This is watcher, pen in hand. Raqib Atid was supposed to be the name of the two angels, the left and right side of us, right? Raqib, I think, is the right side, and Atid is the left side. But the translation actually translate Raqib as a watcher, and Atid as by him pen in hand. So basically, it is a reminder to all of us, whatever we say will be written down by the angels. And with us, the angels is that close to us as we are aware since young that we have an angel on the right and on the left, and we've never seen this angel before, but he's there and he writes down all the things that we do, which is observable to him. There are things which are not observable to him, which he doesn't write. Okay? So non-observable means in your heart, things that you utter in your heart. So maybe you secure in your heart, so you won't get the reward from the writings of the angels. But Allah knows best, and Allah will reward you for your zikrs in your heart, for your good intentions that you have in your heart. Al-Bukhari has written from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a slave will say some words that please Allah the Exalted, and he will not think much of them. But because of them, Allah will raise him several ranks. That means he says things which he doesn't really even notice the goodness of what he has said. Right? But Allah heard it, and Allah will raise him up. So Allah loves good words, and we have learned before. Allah is tayyib, and he loves tayyib. Good words. Tayyib is good. So always learn to say good words. Sometimes some of us, grow up in families which never curse, never swear, never say bad words. But then as we grow up, we mix up with our friends, and they use the 4-letter words. Somehow we get used to hearing it, and I'll eventually use them. Be careful, right? Very careful to avoid such use of words, and to curse and swear and do it on Facebook and on Instagram and whatever. It's not good as Muslims. Likewise, a slave will speak words that angers Allah, words that anger Allah, the Exalted, and he will not think much of them, but because of them, he will descend into the fire. So there's this hadith which tells us that the words can cause you to go to heaven, and words can cause you to go to hell. So be very careful of what you say. That's what it means. We also mentioned the hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. Are people thrown down on their nostrils in the fire for anything other than what their tongues read? So those people who say things, right, and without thinking, who condemns others without thinking, who make fun of others without thinking, who criticizes, even, doing all kinds of sinful things with their tongue. And they will be dragged into the fire on their faces. Etiquette of speech. Speech in Islam has many etiquettes, such as 1. A. The Muslim should be keen to speak about that which is beneficial and refrain from unlawful speech at all times. All right, so we should try our very best to say things which are beneficial, and unlawful speech will be slander, lying, and of course gossiping. These are 3 unlawful things that we should not say things at all. Allah the Exalted has described the believers by saying, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Those, they from useless talk, they will turn away. These are true believers, but Allah describes them as وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Surah Al-Mu'min verse 3. Those who turn away, mu'minun, away from worthless talk. We have one surah Mu'min and another surah Mu'minun. But surah Mu'min is another name, surah Ghafir. Worthless talk includes backbiting, slander, discrediting people's honor, and so forth. No engaging in great deal of permissible speech, because it could lead to that which is lawful, unlawful, or disliked. All right, so the first one is to make sure you speak well, speak good things, right? Second one is that, and don't get involved with anything that's haram. Second one is that, don't talk so much, because you talk so much also not good. You end up with doing unlawful or disliked things. At-Tirmidhi has related from Ibn Umar that Rasulullah SAW said, do not talk a great deal without remembering Allah, for a great deal of talk without the remembrance of Allah hardens the heart, and the people most removed from Allah are the hard-hearted. Right? So too much talk hardens the heart. You want to soften your heart? You got to zikir, remembrance of Allah, lots of zikir, right? You don't have to be going out all the time with people. And once in a while, they go out, okay, socializing or relationship or whatever, but not all the time. Because you end up talking and talking and talking and talking and talking about things that is not necessary to be said. And then the talking and talking will cause your heart to be hardened. It's better to spend to use your tongue to do lots of zikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umar radiallahu anhu said, whoever talks a great deal will have many slips, and whoever has many slips will have many sins, and whoever has many sins is more deserving of the fire. That's the way it is. You talk, you might say things just not right, and then when you say things not right, and then you end up sinful, and then with sin, then you go to fire. See, the obligation to speak when there is a need, and especially to elucidate the truth, enjoying the right and forbidding the wrong, which is considered among the noblest qualities. And especially to elucidate the truth, enjoying the right and forbid the wrong, which is considered among the noblest qualities. Only speak when there is a need, and only to clarify the truth, and that is to encourage good and to forbid the wrong, which is of the noblest qualities. Living it is disobedience and sin, because the one who is silent about the truth is a mute demon. Right? So we know the truth and we're not going to tell people the truth, then we are considered as a terrible demon. Silent. We allow people to commit wrongs. Number 5, concern for one's neighbors and advising him. It is from the perfection of one's faith and the veracity of one's Islam that one treats one neighbor well with righteousness and refrain from harming him as he has informed. So has informed us, right, to be good to our neighbors, to be kind to our neighbors. We have lots of neighbors in our neighborhood, right? We acknowledge their presence, we say hello, thank you, and things like that, and do not injure them, to make things life difficult for them by creating lots of disturbances. Sometimes we might aggravate our neighbors by noise that we make. And sometimes we put things outside in our house and the neighbors are upset because it looks messy, right? So we need to be very courteous with our neighbors in all aspects, and that's Islam, perfection of faith and veracity of one's Islam. There is sufficient evidence for us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has joined between good to one's neighbor and worshipping only him, the glorified. So it's very critical, right? Allah has actually put it together, right? Worshipping Allah and good to one neighbor. So good to one neighbor is considered as something very, very important. All right. He said, wa'budullaha wa la tushriku bihi shay'aw wa bil walidaini ihsana wa bidhil qurba. Right? And worship Allah and be a slave to Allah, and do not give partners to him, a thing, and with your parents be good, and with your close relatives, wal yatama, and the yatim, wal masakin, and the miskin, wal jari dhil qurba, and neighbors that's close, wal jaril junub, far off neighbors, was sahibi bil jam, and companions, far companions. Right, so say worship Allah and do not associate anything with him. Be good to your parents and relatives, and to orphans and the poor, and to neighbors who are related to you and neighbors who are not related to you, as a jar al junub, and to companions, as sahib bil junub. A jar al junub is a neighbor who is far in terms of location or in terms of lineage, while a sahib junub is one's companion in travel and or other circumstances. And it's not true companions, but people whom you get to know along the way. So be good to all of them, right? That is important here. Right? Be good. Use of good words, use of good manners, use of good emotions. We need to be in control of our emotions. Being good to one's companion and honoring him is something commanded in the revealed law. Indeed, concerns for one's neighbor in Islam, which is a degree that is unknown in history of social relations. Islam has emphasized very, very strongly the importance of being good to the neighbor. Look at Al-Bukhari, who was written from Aisha radiallahu anha, when she said, Rasulullah sallallahu said, Jibril kept advising me regarding the neighbor until I thought that he would inherit from me. In other words, I thought that a person would be entitled to a share of his neighbor's estate because of how many neighbors' rights were explained to me. So there's lots of rights of the neighbors which we have to abide to. All right. Now. So we did halfway. We got another halfway of the meanings explanation for this hadith. Now I was supposed to go on to Surah Zumar. Somehow I do not get access to it anymore. I started in the Google Drive, it just cannot open. After Zumar, I'm supposed to go to Mu'min. Mu'min also somehow I cannot open. Right, so now we go on to Fussilat. We move on further ahead of our train. We are following the Quran as it is revealed. So it's okay, inshallah, we'll do Fussilat today. Actually, all those surahs, Zumar, Al-Zumar, and what's the next one? Al-Mu'min are all on YouTube. Right, I was thinking of playing it, playing what I thought. But somehow maybe I shouldn't just go on to Fussilat first. Our introduction, according to some narrations, this is the 61 surah revealed in Mecca about it. It is in the last part, towards the second middle part of Rasulullah's life in Medina. And we know it's after his Mi'raj. So just before his plans to move out of Mecca. 54 verses. The surah, like the previous one, also has two names. It is called Hamim as-Sajdah because of the first two letters of the surah and the Sajdah that is performed at verse 38. Second name is Fussilat, spelled out or explained in detail. The words that occur in the second verse. It is the second verse of the 7 surahs. It's the second of the 7 surahs that all start with alphabetical letters Hamim, and are collectively called the Hawamims because there are lots of Ham. They start off with Hamim. All right, 7 surahs start with Hamim. We have done that. The surah clarifies that true belief in Tawheed requires total dedication to Allah's team. Steadfast preservation on it in every aspect of one's life without giving in to the societal pressures and opposition. So very important is to hold on to the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to hold on to the way that Rasulullah has shown us in every aspect of our life. Not to be affected by pressures and oppositions. Regardless of how severe they are, while steadfastly pursuing the personal excellence that Allah requires each Muslim to have. All right, so even if the rulings are difficult for us, we should believe that it's from Allah, it's for our good, and we should try our very best to do it, while steadfastly pursuing the personal excellence. So we consistently, very steadfast, very persevering, right, pursuing the personal excellence that Allah requires each Muslim to have. So we should do our best to be true Muslims. It complements Surah Ghafir in urging, the Surah Ghafir is a previous surah that we didn't do, in urging perseverance on Tawheed regardless of the reaction of the opponents. That means to persevere in our belief there's only one God, there's no other God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not to be affected by the reaction of the opponents. The surah identifies the human psychology both behind this belief and shirk. Why people are in a state of disbelief and why they are in shirk. And people are succeeding in their world life, they forget about God and ignore Him completely. When they encounter tough times, they supplicate to Him first. That's human nature. Then when they do not get all they want, they look for other avenues who can get them what they want, and that effort they commit shirk. While the reality is that there is none other than Allah who can grant them anything. So sometimes they're very impatient. Right? Because of their impatience, they would actually go to help from sources which are not right? And they end up committing sin or shirk, like bomo and all those things. According to some authentic hadiths, it was sent down after the acceptance of Islam by Hamza and before that of Umar. So we understand that Hamza became Muslim first. Is an uncle. This is an uncle of Rasulullah, while Umar is a cousin or third cousin or something like that. There are relationships, all of them. At the time of his revelation, the Meccan abuse of the Muslims had become very intense. The Meccans had refused to pay any attention to what Prophet had said. So this is according to some authentic hadiths. Right, that's very early, but here we are following this chronological of the verses according to some scholars, right? But not so. So this scholar specifically put it in the last part of Hajj, the last part of the Rasulullah's life in the second part, the middle part of Rasulullah's life in Mecca. Not sure when Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Hamza became Muslims. They in fact warned him that they will do everything in their power to crush his movement. So this things are bad because his supporters, two main supporters, had just passed away. Sayyidina Khadijah radiallahu anha and Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Abdul Muttalib, his uncle Abdul Muttalib, was also has passed away. So he was under very, very strong attacks. But it's supposed that he devised a following action plan. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ or any of his followers would try to recite the Quran in public, they would make so much noise that no one could hear the recitation. They are all out to fight and destroy the teachings of Islam, prevent the teachings of Islam. So this is one of their ways, is to make a lot of noise when the Quran is recited. They would misconstrue the verse of the Quran and spread every kind of misunderstanding among the people. So they're going to do that also. They're going to take the verses of the Quran and find faults with it, or misinterpret it and then spread it among the people. To mislead the people about the Quran and the Messenger, they would misinterpret even the straightforward teachings, isolate words and sentences from their right context, take phrases from different places, add their own words, and propagate such concoctions, pretending as if they were from the Quran. So they are all out to destroy Islam. So they use the Quran and they actually break out the Quran and do all kinds of things in the Quran so that people will not know the true Quran, because the true Quran has been misinterpreted. Sorry, the verses, they put the verse away from people. They would raise ridiculous objections, such as the one that has been mentioned in the surah, whereby they said, if an Arab presents a discourse in Arabic, what could be the miracle in it? So this is kind of thing that they use verses and they make fun of it, and then they say like, you're an Arab, so you write Arabic discourses. I mean, you write prose or whatever in Arabic. So what's so great about that? Anyone could compose anything in his mother tongue and then make the claim that he had received it from God. It would be a miracle the person could suddenly rise and make an eloquent speech in a foreign language that he did not know. So this is how there is their contention. If he actually can speak other languages, then we will understand, we realize how great he is. It's the same thing. Whatever he does, this is all their reasons or their excuses in not wanting to accept the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, finding faults with the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If it's Arab, if it's not in Arabic, they say, oh, why is it not in Arabic? Then we cannot understand, right? Why in Arabic? You said why? Oh, brings it in Arabic. Of course, he's Arab. Nothing is going to be right. Only then could one say that the discourse was not of his own composition, but a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So only if we start saying things which in other languages, then special. Or they would question, why was the Quran not in Hebrew, which was the language of the previous revelation? So they are finding faults, one after another. The surah responds to all of these points. The surah also teaches Muslims to persevere on Islam. Be proud of being Muslims, call people to pure Islam, and repel evil of the opponents with excellence, resisting incitement of shaitan for them to deviate from this path. Right, so the shaitan is always finding ways and means to bring people astray. And he has caused to stray multitudes of people. Those who persevere in this manner are the special slaves of Allah, who are helped by Allah's angels in this life and hereafter. So we need to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to keep on our path. That is why we every day, 17 times a day, we say, Ihdina siratal mustaqim. At least 70 times a day, we say, Ihdina sirat. So ask Allah to guide us along this path that He has put us on. Alhamdulillah. To the disbelievers, it invites them to consider risk. What if it is truly from Allah, but they reject it? So what if it's true and you reject it, and what's going to happen to you? You should think of the dire consequences of rejecting the message of the Quran. Well, there are many signs of its truth, and more of these signs will become evident in future. So it's all about bringing people back to Allah, understand the reality of their lives, right, and following the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So reflective of their own mindset, the chiefs of the Quraysh unduly assumed that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has started this mission for some personal motive. Right? So because they are the ones who does things out of personal motive, not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but people are like that. If you're a liar, you think everybody is a liar. If you're a cheat, you think everybody is a cheat. You start suspecting people of trying to cheat you. And if you're truthful, you think everybody is truthful, even though that person is a liar. Right? So their own mindset, they think about what they are, and they think Rasulullah is all out for some agenda for his own personal motive. So while on the one hand, they were trying to crush it with violence and propaganda, on the other hand, some diplomatic efforts were also considered. One such effort was undertaken by a prominent chief, Utbah bin Rabi'ah, right? So Muhammad ibn Ishaq has related the authority of Muhammad ibn Ka'ab al-Qurazi that one day some of the Quraysh chiefs were sitting in their assembly in Masjid al-Haram, while in another corner of the masjid, Rasulullah sat alone. This was after Hamza alayhi salam, Hamza radiallahu anhu, had embraced Islam, and the chiefs of the Quraysh were angry at the increase in the numbers of the Muslims. On this occasion, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah said to the other Quraysh chiefs, gentlemen, if you like, I could go and speak to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and put before him some proposals. Of course, he didn't say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because he doesn't agree that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a prophet. Maybe that he accepts one that is also agreeable to us, and so he stops opposing us. So they try to, be diplomatic in Rasulullah. So they all agreed to this, and Utbah went and said by Rasulullah. When Rasulullah turned to him, he said, nephew, you know the high status that you enjoy in the community by virtue of your ancestry and your clan. So this is what he started off, calling Rasulullah nephew. Right, as mentioned, they are all related to each other somehow. Maybe a cousin's child or something like that. You know the high status that you enjoy in the community by virtue of your ancestry and your clan, but you have caused your people in a huge distress. You have created divisions among them. You consider them to be fools. You talk ill of their religion and God, and you say things as though all our forefathers were deviant. So this is the concern. So many of these, right? It's true. Now listen to me, and I will make some suggestions. Consider them well. Maybe that one of them is acceptable to you. Rasulullah said, Abul Walid, say what you want to say and I will listen to you. So it's very, very polite. Right? He said, nephew, if by what you are doing you want wealth, we will give you enough of it so that you will be the richest man among us. If you want to become an important man, we will make you our chief and we will never decide a matter without you. And if you want to be a king, we will accept you as our king. And if you are visited by a jinn whom you cannot get rid of on your own, we will arrange the best exorcists and have you treated at our own expense. So you see, he's trying to be he's really thinking that Rasulullah is doing all this for some agenda. Or if not because of some agenda, then he is crazy. He has some problem, mental problem. Utbah went on speaking in this strain, and Rasulullah listened to him quietly. When he stopped, Rasulullah asked, have you said, oh Abul Walid, what do you have said? He affirmed that Rasulullah said, well, now listen to me. Then starting with Bismillah, he began to recite this very surah, and Utbah kept on listening to it, putting his hands behind his back and leaning on them as he listened. After completing the verse of prostration, Rasulullah prostrated himself, raised his head and said, this is my reply, O Abu Walid, now you may act as you please. So we will look at the verses, inshallah, and we will see what he has to say. Right, he recited this verse and he replied to Abu Walid. At this, Utbah got up and returned to the chiefs. When the people saw him, they commented among themselves, by Allah, Utbah's countenance is changed. So Utbah looks pale after listening to the verse of the Quran. He does not look at the same man that he was when he went from here. Then when he reached them and sat down, the people asked, what have you heard? He replied, by Allah, I have heard something the like of which I had never heard before. But Allah is neither poetry, nor clairvoyance, nor magic. The chiefs of the Quraysh, listen to what I say and leave this man to himself. Disturb him, and that's it. So I think what he recites is going to have its effect. If the other Arabs overcome him, you will be safe from raising your hand against your brother, and the others will deal with him. But if he overcomes Arabia, his sovereignty will be your sovereignty, and his honor your honor. So you've got to decide. I mean, since he's your friend, he's your relative. If he conquers the whole of Arabia, then you are honored also. Hearing this, the chief spoke out, "You too, O Abul Walid, has been stricken by his magic." So they call it magic, more of saying that he is very charismatic. And so you are influenced by his charisma and his ways. Utbah replied, "I have given you my opinion, now you may act as you please." All right. How many more? All right, we'll just do a little bit more of that. It should be noted that Utbah's proposal were based on the assumption Rasulullah had some ulterior motive or personal issue behind the Islamic movement that he had launched. But the Prophet made no comment whatsoever on Utbah's assumption or proposals and recited this surah in response. So this gave Utbah a clear message of the real focus and objective of the Islamic movement and of how ridiculous his assumptions and proposals were, such that they did not merit any comments. All right, we will continue that next lesson. Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta khalaqtani wa ana abduka wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'tu a'udzu bika min syarri ma sana'tu abu'u laka bi ni'matika 'alayya wa abu'u bi dhanbi faghfir li innahu la yaghfiru dhunuba illa anta. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابات لنا في ديننا مع أهل القطر أنثى وذكر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. الحمد لله. الحمد لله.